Well, Othello, a major courtroom battle involving Edward Snowden could be in the works. Have you heard about this? The former National Security Agency contractor, well, he remains holed up in Russia after he had leaked a ton of classified documents, but could potentially, they say, he could land back on U.S. soil. Moscow reportedly considering returning him to the U.S., the speculation being that that type of move would potentially gain favor with President Trump. Well, Snowden would face espionage charges, but he says he has nothing to fear, tweeting, quote, "I don't know if the rumors are true, but I can tell you this, I am not afraid. There are things that must be said no matter the consequence." But you know, even before he was a presidential candidate, President Trump called Snowden a traitor who deserves to pay the ultimate price. Just listen to these comments of his from 2013 on Fox and Friends.
Spies in the old days used to be executed. Now nobody knows where he is, but we have to get him back, and we have to get him back fast. They're talking about it could take years, it could take months, but maybe years. That would be pathetic. This guy's a bad guy. And, you know, there is still a thing called execution. You really have to take a strong hand. You have thousands of people with access to kind of material like this. We're not going to have a country any longer.
So what would Snowden face, and what would the trial be like if he is returned? Here's our legal panel. Trial attorney Rachel Self and defense attorney Richard St. Paul, who's also a member of the Republican Lawyers Association. Welcome both. Richard, let me start with you. You know, the Kremlin has so far denied publicly all of this, but, you know, when they say there's smoke, there could be fire. So what would it take to put Edward Snowden on trial?
Look, first of all, there would have to be some strong reason for Russia to turn over Edward Snowden. And also, we got to remember that this just isn't about what Edward Snowden did in terms of taking classified information and sharing it with the world. This will put the United States on trial in reference to looking at how we take data, civilian data, that cell phone information, how we use that, how we spy on our allies. So that will be on trial. That's exactly what the defense is going to offer up in terms of Edward Snowden, and say, hey, look, Edward Snowden is a whistleblower. He's not a spy. He's not a terrorist. He showed the light to how the intelligence agency is illegally spying on the American citizenry.
But Rachel, you know, others say, you know, he's a traitor. You heard what the president said at the time, that he's done incalculable damage to our intelligence services and to the credibility of the United States. And so you get a defense lawyer, a fancy defense lawyer in court, you know, waving this stuff around. I mean, is that really a defense?
No, and Eric, you don't need a fancy defense lawyer waving stuff around. We have the Constitution, and the Constitution involves due process for everyone, no matter how guilty they look, no matter how guilty they appear to be. He's still entitled to a trial, and I think the prosecution will have a very easy time proving the case here. And the tough thing for Mr. Snowden is that he's charged under the Espionage Act of 1917, which is like a giant club, okay, whereas typically the justice system can be utilized in more of a scalpel-like way. This is a giant club that can just come down on somebody very, very hard, and there is no wiggle room. And in fact,
like the U.S. Supreme... like what? I mean, why is the Espionage Act different than, let's say, you know, other type of criminal statutes?
So the reason that it's different is because when it was enacted, it was originally enacted in order to prosecute spies who sold our secrets to other governments. Okay, that's not the case here. What we have here is somebody that released information to the public under a claimed interest in the public good. Okay, so the Espionage Act does not allow for certain defenses. He can't say as an affirmative defense to this, well, I released this because I was whistleblowing. It's not a defense. And so actually the constitutionality of charging the American public with Espionage Act under 1917 crimes hasn't been taken up by the Supreme Court yet, but it's definitely an issue that needs to be addressed because the Espionage Act wasn't intended for citizens. Well, it was intended for spies.
I mean, Richard, you know what that means? I mean, it means the defense attorney, the first thing that they're going to do potentially is challenge the Espionage Act.
They're absolutely going to move to dismiss the Espionage Act as a charge. But what they do have him on is going to be the taking classified documents without authorization. They have him pretty much there dead to rights. But as I said before, this is not going to be a trial about him being a traitor. It's going to be a trial about the NSA spying on the American citizenship and also spying on its neighbors. I mean, that's how his defense is going to distract from that and what he did. And that's not going to look very good for a Trump administration. That's something that they're going to have to deal with whether or not they have curtailed the spying on American citizens or not.
And what do you think, Richard, what do you think the chances are of this actually happening?
I think it's slim. First of all, it distracts from President Trump's message on jobs, the economy, immigration. If you thrust Edward Snowden back into the limelight, what are we going to talk about in terms of the president's current agenda, as we know, which is the immigration ban and dealing with the Supreme Court issues? We don't want to focus. I don't think the Trump administration wants to focus on Edward Snowden at this point in time.
Yeah, but Rachel, it's the legal process. Doesn't have anything maybe to do with, politics or the public view.
No, but also at this point, this is just a rumor. Just last month, Russia extended Mr. Snowden's visa through 2020. He's considered a hero in Russia. And so at this point, we have no concrete support that this is actually even happening. So, and ultimately, yeah, if he winds up back here, then the legal system will take over. He'll be prosecuted probably in the Eastern District of Virginia that has an incredible reputation and history of being very successful in prosecuting these types of cases. And his attorney is going to want to try to work out some sort of deal for him that doesn't involve Espionage Act crimes so that he can actually effectuate an affirmative defense
And
here.
finally, Rachel, quickly, he faces up to 30 years. But why 30 years? Julius and Ethel Rosenberg got death. I mean, there's been decades of controversy over that. More recently, Aldrich Ames, CIA analyst. He's got life. Robert Hansen, the FBI agent who cooperated with the Soviet Union and Russia, 15 life sentences, yet Snowden would be hit with 30. Rachel, how come, the seeming imbalance?
Well, I think that we're slowly moving away, and I think it's a good thing that we're slowly moving away from enforcing the death penalty in this country. I mean, so I think that is one of the reasons why he's facing this, and also because you're dealing with a situation here where this is not somebody at this point that it's clear, and I appreciate what people think about him, but that it's clear that he actually was a spy against our country and sold our secrets to the government, to another government,
And that's the difference here. We don't have information that he's a Russian spy. If we did, then you would probably see the life sentences. And us executing a spy in this country, you'd have to do something really bad. It hasn't happened since 1953, as you mentioned, Eric, with the Rosenberg.
Well, as you know, the authorities certainly say that he has done something very bad. Others have called him a hero for exposing what he did. We'll see how this plays out and if it does in court. Rachel and Richard, good to see you. Thank you.
Same here, Eric. Take care.
Good to see you guys. Thank you.
Arthel?
Well,